Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Neon and welcome back to another benchmarking video. In today's video, we'll be seeing how well the GTX 970 and the i7 6700K run Cyberpunk 2077 on 1080p. Before we get started, I just want to say that if you find this video useful or enjoyable, subscribing to the channel is always appreciated. Anyways, now that we're done with that, the PC that we'll be using today is a CyberPower PC from sometime around 2018. Not all of the parts inside are original to the PC, like the RAM and the graphics card. Inside we have the aging GTX 970 and the specific model is the MSI 100 million edition model. And on top of that, it's still capable of playing most esport titles like Valorant, Rocket League, League of Legends, and more. Unfortunately, this graphics card no longer gets gaming driver updates, but will still receive security updates for a little while longer. However, that's just sadly something that happens to all GPUs, especially given enough time. Anyways, the CPU inside this computer is the i7 6700K running at its default frequency of 4 GHz. As a lot of you may know, you can overclock it for more performance, but for the purposes of this video, we won't be doing any of that. That's mostly just to keep everything consistent. Apart from that, the game is running off of a Sata SSD, and we have 16 GB of DDR4 running at 3200 MHz. But yeah, now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and get straight into the video. Getting started at the low settings at 1080p, the game performs pretty well considering that this graphics card was already like 6 years old when the game was released back in 2020. Anyways, as we drive around the city a little, the overall FPS do fluctuate a little bit, but we usually sit comfortably at around 50 to 60 FPS. Surprisingly, the graphics card isn't using all 3.5 GB of VRAM, yet is still almost at 100% utilization. Anyways, the CPU is sitting at roughly around 70% when inside the city and 50% utilization in less demanding parts. And also another thing is that our RAM usage is fairly stable at close to around 11 GB of total usage. Now moving on to the medium settings at 1080p, the graphics card does begin to struggle a little bit more now. The game looks really nice at these settings and the CPU and RAM usage remain mostly the same. The FPS don't really fluctuate too much, but when you do get to less demanding parts of the map, you may get up to 50 or so FPS. However, something that I will point out is that occasionally when you enter new parts of the city, your FPS may take huge dips. This is fairly normal though, considering how much VRAM this graphics card has though. Now running at the high settings at 1080p, the GTX 970 is using up basically all of the VRAM that it has. Although the game looks great, you could definitely tell that the GTX 970 is struggling to push out FPS. Another thing that happens is that now the game will stutter or dip into the single digits, kind of like what I said before, when there's a lot of action or simply when loading new parts of the map in. Other than that, the game is still fairly playable and it looks great on top of that, and our CPU and RAM usage basically remain the same as the low and the medium settings. And now finally running the game at the ultra settings at 1080p, we really begin to see the limit of the GTX 970. As you can see, the game begins at a pretty okay 30 FPS, but the second that you start driving around, the game dips into the high 20s. However, this is most likely due to the crowd density because it's just so much higher, and also simply the graphics card just does not have enough VRAM. On top of that, the stutter and frame dips I talked about earlier become a lot more common now, but even with all that, this is still very impressive for a graphics card that's like almost 12 years old now. Other than that, our RAM usage is at a stable 11 and 12 GB, and our CPU usage fluctuates from 40 to 70%. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video or found it useful. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below. Other than that, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys next time.